I'm Rick Mantooth, and I'm joined here today by Max Parker, who is a local attorney and, most importantly, president of our San Angelo ISD School Board, as well as Dr. Farrah Gomez, Chief Academic Officer and Deputy Superintendent, and of course, Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Carl Dethloff. I want to just jump right into it. Farrah, starting with you, what are you excited about for the school year? We're right on it. 22-23 is upon us.
Rick, we're just excited to get kids and staff back in our buildings with learning taking place in person. When our buildings are empty, we feel empty. So we're excited to have them back where we can lift up their hopes and dreams and do that in a multiple of ways.
What can families expect this school year?
So families can expect innovation, flexibility, communication on how we can help with some learning loss that might have occurred, but teaching the current content for their grade level, for their academic success. And also, they can expect us to talk about the whole child, helping them not only academically, their social well-being. We care about the whole child, not just a single test score.
Well, as a parent and a grandparent of SAISD kids, I look at my children, my grandchildren now, and know that there is a gap in their learning. So what are some of the action steps that SAISD is going to take to get my grandkids back to level?
That's where you're going to hear that word acceleration, where we are working on some of those areas where they're not quite at level, but we're also teaching the current grade level material. A lot of times you used to hear the words remediation, and you're going to hear the word acceleration. So we know we have to keep going where they are, but we still have to address some areas that they may have lost.
That's a great explanation for that. I'd say that again. We used to talk about remediation.
Yes, and now you'll hear us talk about acceleration, because it's not about staying in the past and just in the areas where we may have some gaps and some deficiencies. It's about addressing those, but also going forward with the current grade level material and continuing to move them forward.
While we're talking,
and that's so interesting to me, Rick, because Farrah, you and I have both read research recently, with the challenges of the last 3 years that show that same thing, that when you take a student in academics, you don't reverse and try to catch them up, you just plow forward. And so I think that's what SAISD is known for, is all those different engaging activities that keep kids wanting to be in the classroom, in person, and learning. We know they have to have that foundation. They've got to read, write, and do math, but it's so much more now with coding, robotics, culinary arts, welding, being able to anticipate problems and solving problems, working with groups. So all of these things, it's just fascinating to me how really recent research has indicated that you've got to just move forward and accelerate kids. And we've, Farrah didn't mention this earlier, but we've got the right person to do that in Dr. Gomez. So she's going to make sure that our kids are ready, prepped, and we're just going to launch forward.
Well, Max, I know that you can agree with me. I mean, most of my volunteer life has to do with children and making sure that kids who, through no fault of their own, need that little extra help. But what I know about watching kids is that they are smarter many times than we give them credit for. And so instead of leaving them back in remedial classes, accelerating them into, it seems like a good idea to me.
I agree with that. I like you, I have two grandchildren that are now in the SAISD, and they're so far ahead of me with things that have to do with technology and the way they can learn.
Sure.
And it's just amazing, their minds. I say, you've got computer brains, is what I tell them, and you're exactly right. You don't. Now, some kids have not been exposed to any of that, not like my grandchildren or yours, and so they have a more acceleration that they're going to be able to experience, and that's good for them, because we are not. We don't. With the back of the old saying, "No child left behind," we're certainly not leaving any child behind. It's like they need to be on the path somewhere. We just get them on the path, we take them as they are, and we keep them moving along, and that's what Farrah will talk about, how we measure progress. We want our kids that are really far on the path, we want them to continue to accelerate themselves and keep going down the path. We don't want them to wait for these to catch up, but we want the others that are behind to keep making progress and keep going down the path also.
I blew my grandchildren's mind the other day when I told them that I was born before the internet. Let's talk about maybe head in a different direction, because we also are concerned, as we are concerned about the whole student, we're concerned about mental health as well as education. Let's talk about that a little bit.
We definitely are, Rick. That is an area that we've spent much time and attention working around. We have a great new partnership with Care Solace, and that's to really support the social emotional well-being for health and safety reasons for students, our staff, and their immediate family members. Because if there's something not working in the household, we know it's still going to impact either our students or our staff. So Care Solace allows us to support them for mental health or substance use so that we can work with the whole individual to help them get the needed support.
Dr. Dethloff, anything you want to add to that?
Well, I just think, Dr. Gomez has been instrumental in making that happen for us. And what it's neat is you bring out your favorite smart device and you can immediately get access to care. So it really cuts out a lot of the middle area where we're having trouble getting connected to a medical provider or a professional, and it starts locally in your community with medical providers and assistants in your community, and then it reaches out past your local community so that they can get immediate care, and they call it, I think, warm handoffs. And since we just started this in May, and I think there's been over maybe 140 warm handoffs where there's been connectivity between either a family member, a teacher, a student that has looked and wanted some help with, it could be personal wellness, could be mental health needs, a family member, and so it's just been a great support for all of our family and constituents.
I want to mention something about that, because I've been a proponent for mental health for many years. Mental health and mental disorders are diseases, just like having diabetes or cancer or whatever. And we have a problem in our community about wanting to talk about that. It's a taboo. And the way I understand this is set up, it's very confidential. A teacher has some problem, they don't have to come to Carl or Dr. Gomez and say and get permission and have to open up their lives of what's going on. They can call these numbers and they can get connected with a mental health provider, and it's not something, it's something that's kept confidential, just like with a parent or a student. That's very important for those that are worried about that, is they don't want others to know right now. So this is a way that they can get that care that they need and it be kept confidential.
Well, what we know, without going into great detail, is that the suicide rate among young people in our community is unacceptable, and we need to do something about it. And it sounds like you've got a great plan.
It's 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a week in any language.
Yep.
So you can't beat that connectivity.
Dr. Dethloff, I know this is a passion of yours, that we need to retain and recruit teachers and professionals. And so what are your plans for doing that?
Well, there's certainly obstacles in public education yet, but we talk all the time. It's still the most noble profession we have, and we just love the connection and the relationships with teachers and students is unparalleled, and you can make an impact over a lifetime, not just an impression. And so we're delighted to our Board of Trustees, coupled with our administration, we've provided raises, I think 6 of the last 7 years. Now, what's a hardship about that is we understand that in economic times that we're in, inflation, certainly the cost of living is increased, but our district has really done an incredible job of providing those increases to our teachers and staff, as also with retention bonuses. Farrah can talk about, we have multiple retention bonuses to keep our master teachers in the classroom. Do you want to talk about some of those, Farrah, that have been ongoing for multiple years?
Absolutely. So building your current staff and keeping them is essential, as well retention as well as recruitment. So for example, this year, any returning employee, and that's any employee that is with us at the end of the school year, will receive a $2,000 retention incentive. And then any new to the district will receive $1,000. You hear this all over, Rick. It's not just unique. But we really want to stress the importance of building up our current people. When we say our people make the difference, every employee in the district makes a difference. But your current employees that have stayed with you, you want to recognize them for that commitment and that service. So it's a balance of how do you recognize them, but bring new to the profession teachers when nationally there's less going in the profession and there's a shortage.
Max, you're not really from the outside looking in. I mean, you're very involved as a board member, but you might have a different perspective on teacher retention and recruitment. Let's talk about that.
Well, yes, from the board, we have been concerned about this even before COVID. The numbers were showing that more people were leaving the profession, about 10% per year. When COVID here, it went to about 11 or 12%. But what also was happening at the same time that most people don't know about is less students are going into the profession initially. I had a figure here that in 1975, 22% of college students were education majors. And in 2015, it's only 7%. And it's gone down even more since 2015. So where Dr. Gomez was in charge of HR last year, and where she would normally go to ASU to say, okay, how many students do you have? We're using you guys for our student teachers. We want to recruit you to be at SAISD. They had maybe half as many students as they had normally graduated. Earlier, I spoke at a new teacher orientation that Dr. Gomez hosted, and this year, I mentioned in the past, I'd looked out and I might see almost all 90% are 22, 23-year-old girls that have graduated from ASU, smiling faces, innocent, getting ready to go into the teaching profession. Today, looking at the teachers that, because of our raises, our incentives and so forth, we had a whole different group because most couldn't come from ASU. And we had diversity. We had some that were 22, 23 that had done the regular route to get there. And then we had others that looked as old as you and me, gray hair, that were there, and many men. One had come from New Mexico, even been a school board member there in New Mexico. So it's a very diverse group. As I said, many of the teachers we hired today that are new, they're battle tested. They're not brand new, and I think they're going to be great members of our school district, and I think that's what we're going to see in the future until we start graduating more student teachers. And Farrah I don't know if she's mentioned it, she has some ways that we are trying to grow our teachers from within that she needs to discuss that I think is very innovative.
When Max
that's a great lead-in.
When Max said they're battle tested, that was a great way to talk about how we grow our own. So we, again, are blessed with great partnerships. We have a strong partnership with Angelo State University, Howard College, and their two-step program to help potential educators to go into the profession. We have a great partnership with others such as Grand Canyon University, Hartwell University. We're existing paraprofessionals working in our classrooms, but thought obtaining a degree or becoming a teacher might not be possible for time and financial reasons, removing those barriers so that they could get their own classroom. We've actually hired for the very first time a student that graduated this past May, and she will be working as a paraprofessional in one of our schools. So that's a true grow your own. We also have, through our CTE program, when we're talking about industry-based certifications, we had the most students we've ever have leave high school with an educational aid certificate where they can be employed in a school district, a daycare facility. So making those connections so you have other routes. If they're not going in the field, how do you grow your own? And that's definitely battle tested. If they're already in the room, they know what's happening on a daily basis.
This is a discussion that is an elephant in the room, and it needs to be brought up, and now is as good a time as any, I think. Is it possible that the recent tragedy in Uvalde and all of those like it for the last number of years, these tragedies that we continue to see in classrooms and in public gatherings. Is that also, do you think, maybe another reason that folks are not going into the teaching profession because of safety reasons?
Well, and I think if you kind of zoom out on that topic and look at, the fire department, police departments, medical professionals, the nursing industry, I think all of these teachers, public education, are all in a challenging environment where there's a lot of political agendas, there's a lot of wedge issues, and safety absolutely could be a concern about that. I think one of the things that we've done, Rick, the last 3 days, I just want to take a minute to commend our law enforcement personnel in San Angelo. I believe that Uvalde tragedy happened like the Wednesday, the last week of school for us in May. And immediately we had military personnel and police from Goodfellow Air Force Base show up on our campuses. San Angelo Police Department continued to do an incredible job of just massively getting into all of our campuses immediately with every available officer that they had. We had the Sheriff's Department, Tom Green County Sheriff's Department did an incredible job of helping us as well, along with Angelo State University Police Department. So, and I'm not only a superintendent, but I'm a dad, father, community member, spouse, and when I walk into those campuses and see our incredible men and women that are in law enforcement there, it makes me feel better as a father, better as a person, better as a superintendent. And our Board of Trustees has charged us with, you know what, let's make it happen. We will find the funding to do this, but let's make it happen. How do we enhance our law enforcement personnel at our campuses? And of course, that's a phased-in approach, but already we have been in many conversations with our SAPD Sheriff's Office, and we are doing that right now, enhancing our presence at elementary, middle, and high school campuses for the 22-23 school year. And in early June, our incredible team of law enforcement personnel came together as a group, all of us in one room at one time, and talked about, okay, how can we get better and create safer conditions in SAISD and in our community? And so we're implementing that. Just last week we had another committee, our safety council met with parents, constituents, leaders in our community, law enforcement, and again looking at that charge. What we've had an incredible research done by Dr. Jason Skelton and Michael Kalmbach of really perusing through all the documents with all the school mass shootings. And there's different layers. There's mass shootings, school mass shootings. But in looking at school mass shootings, Rick, what we have found in looking at all the documents, the 77 report recently from Uvalde, that 77-page report, is that when a student is behind a locked door, we can't find any casualties. Now, there may be a casualty of a student when they left the room, but when a student is behind a locked door, we couldn't find casualties in a mass school shooting. It's unlocked doors, students that were making transfers, personnel, teachers that were making transfers. So one of the things we're doing this year with our safety council and our administrative team is we are implementing safety checks, additional safety checks. So not only will Dr. Gomez and I go on learning walks, academic walks to see what's happening in the classroom, we're going on safety walks with our entire team to check perimeter doors, interior doors, and Jason Henry, our Director of Purchasing, has done a magnificent job as well, really making certain that we have everything ordered that we need to create those safer conditions.
Well, I think we all look forward to the day when our kids can go to school and worry about the next test instead of worrying about who's around that corner. Yes, and so it sounds like you've got a good plan to get that started as well. Last year, Congress authorized funding to support school districts in free lunches, and that federal funding has ended. So what do parents need to do to apply for the free or reduced price meals at school this year?
That's super important with registration, Rick, and it's being communicated to our parents and our families. They did not have to fill out the online form last year, but they will need to fill out that online form this year to see if they qualify for free or reduced prices.
Okay, so this sounds a little intimidating to those of us who are not that computer brains, as Mr. Parker was talking a few moments ago. So walk us through that.
So what we want everyone to know is that if they have any problems, we have staff on site that can help them.
Very good.
We want to eliminate that concern. We can remove that barrier.
Okay.
The main thing is filling out the form in advance of school starting to see if there's a qualification for that free or reduced price.
Okay.
We also want to make sure everyone understands we will be providing, as we have, and we'll continue to provide the free breakfast. It's specific to the lunch meal.
And right now in our school district, as Dr. Gomez mentioned, we have about 65% of our families that attend SAISD are under-resourced, that may qualify for some sort of assistance, whether they're economically disadvantaged or certainly in an under-resourced situation. So we want to do everything we can, because we know, again, it goes to that hierarchy. You know, when a student feels full, they have their meals, their learning is going to be better. So we'll make certain that students have a healthy meal, and our child nutrition department does everything possible.
Well, and hearing that percentage and that number, I know that has long been an issue with kids who are not necessarily going hungry, but are not sure where their next meal is going to come from. And that is a lot more prevalent in this community than one might think. So you know, if you feel, don't let pride get in the way. If you feel like you're alone in that sort of situation and you don't want to move forward to get your kids fed, don't let that be a barrier.
Yeah, tell your classroom teacher. Parents can tell their classroom teacher or their campus principal, but we will make that happen, or contact us.
You're certainly not alone. Anything else that we need to add as we wrap up our conversation here?
Well, I'll turn this over to one more thing to Dr. Gomez that's not here, but any parent that's having trouble, doesn't have money for school supplies and so forth, I don't know what number they need to call, but there's help that can be that can help provide that. Is that?
That's absolutely correct, through another great partnership with the DESK program. And so we want to eliminate worries about who to call. They just need to contact their campus, and the campus can make the connection, but we can assist with that as well.
All right, very good. Well, we want to thank you for joining us today to learn more about what's happening at San Angelo ISD. We're looking forward to growing your students' hopes and dreams this school year, as we know that you are as well. Can't wait to see those students on the first day of school, and it's August 17th. Don't forget that. And don't forget to follow our Facebook, our Twitter, and certainly on the website at www.saisd.org. You can stay up to date on all things SAISD.